Hello, and welcome to another video from 3.5 Archive. Today, we're going to be doing our 75th D&D 3.5 Prestige class review, and we're going to be looking at the Bladesinger Prestige class from the Complete Warrior Sourcebook. Bladesingers are elves that blend swordplay and magic into one cohesive whole, and their elegant dancing in battle leaves their foes shocked and usually lying bleeding and dead on the ground, possibly scorched as well. Bladesingers tend to be Ranger Wizard multiclass, Fighter Wizard multiclass, Rogue Wizard multiclass, or even Bards, which would probably be the first thing that you would expect from a prestige class called the Bladesinger. Bladesinger requires you to be an elf or half-elf, so you have to be one of those two races to get into this prestige class. You need a +5 base attack bonus, you need 2 ranks in balance, 4 ranks in concentration, 2 ranks in perform dance, 2 ranks in perform sing, and 2 ranks in tumble. You're also going to need combat casting, combat expertise, dodge, and weapon focus in either longsword or rapier, which are the 2 weapons that you're going to be allowed to use with this prestige class. Fans of 5th edition D&D are going to recognize those as the weapons that are used by the Bladesinger Wizard subclass in that edition of the game. You also need to be able to cast arcane spells of 1st level, so you only need to have 1 level in Wizard, technically speaking, or Sorcerer if you wanted. And so the requirements for this prestige class are pretty restrictive. You're going to need 4 different feats. You're going to need a variety of different skills that odds are going to be cross-class skills for at least some of your classes. If you went into this as a pure fighter, for example, then you would need a total of 24 skill ranks to get into this prestige class with all the cross-class skill ranks you'd be taking. That can be dropped down to only 20 if you have concentration as a class skill, but you're not going to have any of these other skills as class skills for a fighter, or a wizard, most likely. So, odds are you're going to be wasting a lot of skill points, which isn't going to be ideal. You're going to put a feat into combat casting, which generally is not the best. You're going to put another feat into combat expertise, which isn't the best. And dodge isn't a stellar feat either. Weapon focus is pretty good, of course, but again, it's going to be in longsword or rapier, which are not the most powerful weapons, but this is going to be for your particular fighting style with this prestige class. Somebody looking at this prestige class might think, well, maybe I should take levels in Duskblade, as they get combat casting for free, and they will already have the good dexterity and intelligence, as well as being able to cast arcane spells of 1st level, so I will have no problem. I'm still not going to be doing that well with the skill points issue, but that's going to be difficult for anybody except for maybe the bards coming into this prestige class. And that's something interesting to keep in mind as we go through here, thinking about coming into this as a Duskblade or a Bard, rather than the recommended Fighter Wizard. So what do you get from being a Bladesinger? Well, you get a D8 hit die, fortunately. You're going to get a full base attack bonus, which is good. You're going to get a good reflex and will save, like a Bard. And you're going to get 2 plus intelligence modifier skill points per level. So these are decent stats. The full base attack, of course, is going to be the most important part. D8 hit die isn't amazing, but it is better than Bard, and it's going to be at least decent enough for, your average frontliner. You're not going to be able to take a lot of damage, especially as an elf, if you choose to be an elf. But let's take a look at what you get. First of all, your spells per day, you get an advancement to your existing arcane spellcasting class at odd-numbered levels only. So that means you're only going to get 5 levels of spellcasting advancement out of this 10th level prestige class. So, right away, we're seeing a major issue here, which is your spellcasting is going to fall way, way behind. So, your fighting ability had better make up for it. I mean, even if you stripped out all of the abilities of the Duskblade base class, you would still get, full spellcasting advancement there and a full base attack bonus. Or, say you went into Eldritch Knight, which is an easier prestige class to get into, you would get full base attack bonus advancement and full spellcasting advancement. And this prestige class just doesn't measure up to that just by looking at this. And the other thing to note here, just looking at the table, is that you only get a class feature at levels where you don't get advancement in your spellcasting. So clearly whoever made this prestige class thought very highly of the features they created. We'll see if they measure up to replacing an entire level of spellcasting advancement. So at level 1 you're going to get Blade Song Style. While wielding a longsword or rapier in one hand and nothing in the other hand, you're going to get a dodge bonus to armor class equal to your class level up to a maximum of your intelligence bonus, or really vice versa. And if you wear medium or heavy armor, you lose all benefits of this style. So you do get proficiency with light armor from the Bladesinger, and later on you get the ability to cast spells in light armor, spoiler alert. You might already have that from Bard, or if you came into this as a duskblade, then you would also. But just looking at this, it's really not that great. It's reminiscent of the duelist class feature that lets you add some of your intelligence bonus to your armor class, and that's not very good either. It's going to be a little bit better here because you're going to have intelligence as a good score, but you're going to have to go up through quite a bit of this prestige class in order to get the full benefit of it. And while yes, it is a dodge bonus that stacks with everything, that still doesn't make it particularly fantastic. At level 2, you're going to get lesser spell song. While you're wielding a longsword or rapier in one hand and nothing in the other, you can take 10 while making a concentration check to cast defensively. This is a nice feature, although it's kind of annoying that you were required to dump a feat into combat casting in order to take this prestige class when you could have just been maxing out your concentration skill and then getting this feature and not having to worry about it. Getting combat casting is going to make this feature just that much more useless, as you're already probably going to be able to cast defensively. If you're coming into this prestige class with even just an average constitution of 10, and you somehow manage to get into this after 5th level, the example character comes in after level 8. So if you came into this as a duskblade somehow, that'd be one thing, but let's take a look at being a, level 6 wizard, level 2 fighter, like the example is. If you sank enough skill points into it, by that point you'd have a plus 11 to concentration and a plus 15 to cast defensively. So at that point, you have a very good chance of being able to cast defensively any of your spells, and being able to take 10 makes it so that that combat casting feat becomes entirely useless. So this is a nice feature, but it does make it annoying that you had to have yet another feat, and feats are pretty precious, especially when you're an elf or half-elf and not a human. You don't get bonus feats. So this feature is a little bit frustrating, but it is good. It is solid. You are going to want this for casting in melee. A Duskblade's not really going to need it with their arcane channeling, but if you want to cast another type of spell, then it'll be good to have this. And again, you'll get combat casting for free from being a Duskblade. At level 4, so you get no feature at level 3, but at level 4 you get Song of Celerity. This lets you quicken once per day a single spell of up to 2nd level without any adjustment to the spell's effective level or casting time. You can only use this while you have a longsword or rapier in one hand and nothing in the other. And then at 8th level and higher you can quicken a single spell of up to 4th level. And this is pretty nice. This will pair well with the previous ability you got. So you can, stab somebody and then you can do a quickened, magic missile, scorching ray, Mel's acid arrow, or glitter dust. Or you can do a glitter dust to open and then attack. However you want to do it. This is a nice feature. Being able to get a free quicken is pretty good. It's only once per day though at all. I mean, it does improve the level that you can do it at. But this is a once per day ability. So you really need to think about, instead of taking levels in this, I could have been getting quick casting from Duskblade and getting, multiple uses of that per day later on. And while it seems a little bit unfair to compare this class to the Duskblade base class that was published later on, it is a fair comparison still, because this book also contains the Hexblade, which was such a weak base class that it was semi-errated later on, unofficially, and is still considered one of the weakest classes out there. And so it's quite a bit of fun to play still, and this prestige class looks like fun as well, but it is definitely a product of its time in the different periods of 3.5 class design, something to keep in mind. Not a terrible feature, but still not an excellent one, especially given all the hoops you have to jump through to get in this prestige class. At level 6, you're going to get Greater Spell Song. This lets you ignore arcane spell failure chance while wearing light armor. Well, if you come into this as a Bard or Duskblade, then this level is absolutely useless, and I would suggest not even getting to this level. But then again, as a Duskblade, it's not very tempting to get into this anyway. And while you might say that, being a wizard, fighter wizard, is better than being a Duskblade because you're going to get access to more diverse set of spells, and you're going to get more use out of the Song of Celerity that way because of the more options you have. That is true, but again, it's only up to 2nd level spells, and the wizard spells of up to 2nd level aren't really that fantastic. I mean, there's glitter dust. Maybe for some reason you would want to quicken a mirror image once per day if you were ambushed or something like that, and you didn't have time to cast buff spells. So there's a little bit of option there, but you could have been, doing that, or by this point having quicken spell available to you just anyway to have up your sleeve, or replacing it with a Rod of Metamagic Quicken, which admittedly is very expensive, but much less so for the lesser one that would let you quicken a spell like that. And while it might be unfair to compare a prestige class feature to a magic item that replaces it, in a prestige class this sparse with features, it's kind of hard not to, because you go through so much trouble and take so many feats that you might not necessarily want, that when you realize that you could have just spent some of your gold on a magic item you'd probably want anyway, it really defeats the purpose of the prestige class in a lot of ways. At level 8, you're going to get that upgrade to Song of Celerity, so now you can quicken a spell of up to 4th level. So maybe you can quicken Greater Invisibility or something like that, maybe Displacement, or maybe a Cone of Cold, Phantasmal Killer, who knows. It is a good feature, and honestly, it's probably the best feature of the Prestige class, except for the level 10 feature, which would be the best feature were it not for the fact that you have to wait all the way until level 10 and lose 5 levels of spellcasting, plus what you lost from multiclassing into Fighter. So Song of Fury at level 10, when you make a full attack with a longsword or rapier, you can make 1 extra attack at your highest base attack bonus, and it works like Rapid Shot does, except for melee. Each of these attacks gets a -2 penalty, and it applies for a whole round, so it applies to any of attacks of opportunity you might make before your next turn. So you basically get Rapid Shot with a longsword or rapier, which is great because wielding a longsword or rapier in one hand at high levels is a pretty terrible idea, unless you are packing a lot of Silver Sheen and have an adamantine rapier that's holy as well, and you have plenty of extra weapons to deal with damage reduction, because the low damage that you deal with all those extra attacks is going to be a lot less than a two-handed power attacking fighter is going to be dealing with the same or fewer numbers of attacks. So Song of Fury really isn't that great of a feature given what it's applying to here. And as a capstone for this prestige class, while it is flavorful, it's really not very good. So looking at the Bladesinger overall, the biggest improvement that could be made to this prestige class would be to condense it to 5 levels. Give you full spellcasting advancement, and give you the lesser spell song at level 1, and condense everything else into those 5 levels. Song of Celerity at 2nd level, Greater Spell Song at 3rd, Song of Celerity Greater at 4th, and then Song of Fury at 5th. And while this might seem like you're really powering up the Prestige class, you need to keep in mind here that you are playing an elf or half-elf that needs to take 4 different feats in order to get into this Prestige class, as well as a variety of different skills, of which, they're not all going to be class skills. So you're pretty much dedicating your entire character to these abilities, which are unfortunately fairly mediocre. And again, with the duskblade comparison here, I mean, the duskblade is going to get features that replace most of these, and in a lot of ways, the duskblade is an evolution of the Bladesinger, making it into a base class rather than a prestige class. And while the Bladesinger definitely is distinct, it's very mediocre in comparison. Imagining a party that has 2 half-elf spellsword type characters, having one be a Bladesinger and one be a duskblade sounds really interesting, as the Bladesinger will be running around quickening mirror images and Mel's acid arrows and glitter dusts, while the duskblade, of course, will be channeling shocking grasps and ghoul touches through his sword attacks, and the 2 characters will have distinct styles, but the Bladesinger is getting these features so late in the game that they're really not worth having. Having Song of Fury at level 10 is a big difference from having it at level 15. And actually, it would be a lot later. It would be level 18 for the example character given in the Prestige class section. And honestly, at that point, if you're not doing power attacks, you're really just hurting yourself in so many ways in order to keep up with the kind of damage you need to be dealing. And while you will have spells to help you, a Bladesinger character is just going to struggle a lot. And you definitely can play this. It will be a competent character, but if you have any other characters in your party, as you presumably will, you're probably going to feel left behind. You're going to feel like you're not contributing as much as them. So overall, we're going to have to give the Bladesinger 4 stars for concept, but only 2 stars for execution. If it were condensed to 5 levels, it would easily have 4 stars, and if you mess with its features a little bit to accommodate for the fact that duskblades might want to enter this prestige class, as well as bards, which are mentioned, but for some reason it still includes a feature that is just completely useless for them with the greater spell song that lets you ignore spell failure chance from light armor. Well, the bard already has that. Coming into this as a bard would be sort of fun, but you're going to be missing out on improvements to your bard features. And just overall, this prestige class is unfortunately a mess. With some homebrewing, it could be made usable, but as is, it's really, again, only there if you truly want to be a Bladesinger for the flavor. The art for this prestige class is pretty cool, and that's probably the best thing that can be said about it in its current state. So that'll be about it for this D&D 3.5 prestige class review. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and so on. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time here on 3.5 Archive.